2022 meeting of this committee. We will start with a roll call. Katie, would you mind taking that roll for us?
I will do that. Karina Buller.
Here.
Bruce Brunner.
Here.
Colleen Ebinger.
Here.
Chloe Jackson. Spolinski Jaycox.
Here.
Queen Kimmons. Charlotte Kinsley.
Here.
Aliana Latron Garcia. David McGee. Lisa Mears. Melissa Newman. Colleen O'Connor Toberman.
Present.
Maggie Oddie. Scott Schaefer.
Here.
Janine Seja.
Here.
Cecil Smith.
Here.
Rose Tang. Annie Wells.
Here.
I'm just going to go back through one more time for those who didn't answer before. Chloe Jackson. Queen Kimmons. Aliana Latron Garcia. David McGee. Lisa Mears.
Rose just joined the meeting, Katie.
Okay. Rose, we're just going back through a few people who weren't here at the beginning, so I'll be there in just a moment to your name. Melissa Newman. I guess we know the others didn't join. Rose Tang.
Here.
Hey, Rose. Okay, we have 11 members, so we have a quorum.
Great. Great for quorum. Thanks, Katie. All right, next is the adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
This is Bruce. I move that we adopt the agenda.
Any
Scott
seconds?
seconded.
Thanks, Scott. Katie, would you mind once again taking the vote for us?
I will. All right, on the motion to adopt the agenda, Karina Bowler.
Aye.
Bruce Brunner.
Yes.
Colleen Ebinger.
Yes.
Spolinski Jaycox.
Yes.
I think I just saw that Queen joined. Queen, we're voting on the adoption of the agenda, and we're to you. Do you want to vote on that?
Yes.
All right. Thank
Move
you.
that we. Yes.
Charlotte Kinsley.
Yes.
Colleen O'Connor Toberman.
Yes.
Scott Schaefer.
Yes.
Janine Seja.
Yes.
Cecil Smith.
Yes.
Rose Tang.
Yes.
Annie Wells.
Yes.
There are 12 yeses. The agenda is adopted.
Great, thanks so much, Katie. And then finally, we need a motion to accept the minutes from our December meeting.
So moved. This is Cecil.
Thank you,
Second,
Cecil.
Bruce.
Thank you, Bruce. Katie, please take the vote for us. Thank you.
All right. Karina Bowler.
Aye.
Bruce Brunner.
Yes.
Colleen Ebinger.
Yes.
Spolinski Jaycox.
Yes.
Queen Kimmons.
Yes.
Charlotte Kinsley.
Yes.
Colleen O'Connor Toberman.
Yes.
Scott Schaefer.
Yes.
Janine Seja.
Yes.
Cecil Smith.
Yes.
Rose Tang.
Yes.
Annie Wells.
Yes.
All right, the minutes are approved.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone. Next on our agenda is our committee's public comment opportunity. The Advisory Committee on Housing sets aside 10 minutes on each of our agendas to hear public comments from non-committee members. We ask that each person making a comment keep their remarks to 1 minute or less. All comments should be related to housing issues in the city of Minneapolis and, when possible, related to items on the committee's agenda for this meeting today. We do take notes on all the public comments and we discuss them as they relate to our other agenda items. City staff or committee leadership will follow up with any person who made a comment if there's a need for a reply. So if anyone is present today to make a public comment, please unmute yourself by pressing *6 and state your name now. We'll then call on individuals to make their 1 minute comments. Once again, if you'd like to make a public comment, please press *6 to unmute.
Hi, this is Andrea Palumbo at Homeline. I have a comment.
Great, thank you. Andrea, go ahead.
Okay. As I said, this is Andrea Palumbo. I'm a housing attorney at Homeline, and we have already had some questions come to us about the City of Minneapolis's mask mandate. And we advise rental tenants, and specifically, they're wondering if this mandate applies to common areas of apartments, individual units, and when a landlord or maintenance comes into an individual unit. And I know the mandate is brand new, but we are concerned because it seems that there's been some uncertainty about exactly whether these situations are covered. So just wanted to bring that forward and see if there's any clarification on that.
I'll jump in if you don't
Yeah.
mind, Colleen.
Yeah, go ahead, Kelly. Thank you.
So I'm still actually trying to get a final answer on that because I reached out to our city attorney's office, and they're at least tentatively, and I will confirm this again, they believe that this particular recent emergency declaration does not extend to private common areas in like a private residential. It would if it was a pool, like, or something, if you had a pool in the building, but just in the common areas, hallways, at least the initial read that I'm getting from our attorneys. I know that this came up at our rental property advisory group, and Cecil, you were saying that your recollection of the first mandate, it did include rental common areas,
right.
And this one, at least from the last read I got from our attorneys, they're still landing on it is not. It's highly recommended. It's strongly encouraged. We really want to support it, but it's not required. And then I'm still waiting to hear on whether or not that and again, we could talk to our attorneys as well about whether or not maintenance people are required to wear masks if they're entering a private property. My guess is that you could refuse, right? To say, hey, you can't come in my house if you don't have a mask.
Yes.
But it's not something that we're requiring.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you, Kelly.
But
And
I just said, Colleen,
like to
I
hear
will
from you on
follow
that.
up and get a absolute. Yeah, I'll absolutely get a much more clear final opinion that's in the works on that. So,
Okay,
Saray, I don't know if you want to
terrific.
jump in or not.
Thanks,
Thank
Kelly.
you.
And certainly, Kelly, I know you all know how to reach Homeline, but for others who might be interested in the answer too, where will this be posted, or where can this will be posted on our committee website, or where would people find it?
Yep, we can post it. We can post it on the committee website, and also we'll make sure that we've got information on our own website once we get a final sort of answer.
And
I
Kelly,
saw Ray was gonna hop in, but
Oh, sorry, this is Katie.
Yes,
I was
Katie.
just going to say we can also make sure 311 has that information because I believe the guidance at the moment for the public has been to contact 311 with either complaints or questions. So we can also make sure 311 has that information.
Yes.
Well, thank you for the very timely question. I think you're educating all of us, so I appreciate it. Thanks, Andrea.
Okay, you're welcome.
Is there anyone else on the line who would like to make a public comment? If so, you can unmute yourself by pressing *6. Not hearing anyone else, so I'll give one last final chance to get off mute. *6 if you'd like to make a public comment. All right, I think that is everyone. So we are next on our agenda is to move to the committee leadership election. Neither Joey or I are going to be standing for re-election for leadership. And in fact, on that note, Katie Topinka has some news to share related to Joey.
Yeah, thanks, Colleen. And yes, you'll notice Joey is not here today. She is actually no longer on the committee because she left her role at Legal Aid and will be joining the city as the Housing and Equitable Development Policy Coordinator with CPED. So she'll be working with me in CPED. And so you will still be interacting with her because she will work with this committee in her new role as a city staff person, but she'll be on the staff side and not as a committee member. So we're very excited to have her on board as a city staff person starting next week. And so you will all still get to see and interact with Joey, but she'll be in a different role as a staff person for the city. So her seat on the committee is vacant, and we are sorting through right now how to fill both her seat, the MPHA vacancy, and the vacancy from Brenda's seat. And so hopefully it may not happen by February, but hopefully certainly by March, we'll have those roles filled. And we do, I know, have somebody here from Legal Aid, Alexander, as a guest today, since Joey is not on the committee anymore, and I'm helping to observe on their behalf today. So anyway, that's the announcement. And so you will certainly be working with and seeing Joey soon, but just in a different capacity.
On that note, our first order of business today and for the beginning of this new calendar year is to elect new leadership for the committee. So traditionally, we have had 2 co-chairs and then we've had a secretary role. There's some flexibility around that. And then we've also sort of had the other co-leaders. So I think we have some flexibility and openness to how we want to do that. But I would encourage anyone who is interested right now in stepping forward into a leadership position to say your name and volunteer yourself. Or if you'd like to nominate someone else, you're welcome to do that as well. I see Scott has a hand raised. Scott, why don't you say a few words?
Hi, I'm Scott. I'd be interested in the co-chair, one of the co-chair positions. Is that all I need to say, or do I need to talk about myself at all?
I would say, I think it's probably helpful to say a little bit about yourself and kind of the role you've played on the committee up until now and your interest in housing, why you would be interested in this role.
Yeah, so I joined the committee when it started. When was that? Like about almost 3 years ago now. Yeah, I helped as the secretary for the first term and worked with Colleen and Joey and Katie and the others to help set the agenda items and yeah, kind of execute the meetings. And yeah, it's yeah, I enjoyed it and would like to step back into a leadership position. And yeah, so I have a master's degree in urban planning from the University of Minnesota. I work as a transportation planner and have been paying attention to and writing about housing policy for a while in Minneapolis.
Jane also has her hand up. Jane, why don't you go ahead and say a little bit to the group?
Good afternoon. This is Queen Kimmons. I would like to nominate myself. I have been with boards and commissions for about 5-6 years. I do understand that this is about policy and how we can best put policies together for people to have some of these housing issues brought to us. And I'd be more than willing to take on a different role. Currently, I am doing some secretarial work for this committee, but I would be happy to take on any other responsibilities. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Queen. Is there anyone else who's interested?
This is Karina. I would like to nominate Queen.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? And so we've got two people, and really room for 3 too. So if there's anyone else who's interested, I encourage you to step forward.
Colleen, do you want to talk a little bit about the time commitment in case people are feeling like it's going to be an overwhelming time commitment? This is heavily staff supported role,
Yeah, that's a good
just
point.
in case you're interested.
Yep. So the way that Joey and I have worked, over the last couple of years, and then also with Scott and also with Queen over the years, as they've both held those positions, is that we've had meetings in between, each of our monthly committee meetings. So we meet up usually the week or 2 weeks, depending on the calendar. Either the following week or 2 weeks after that, we'll meet up again to talk through, kind of debrief the previous meeting, figure out what we pulled from that meeting, what we need to talk about the next meeting, and then create the agenda. So that time is, about 45 minutes to an hour meeting time. And then in between that, there's often, a little bit of outreach to certain people. For example, recruiting some people to work on the budget and do the analysis on the budget, or to talk about the SRO ordinance, right? So just following up on conversations that have taken place during the last committee meeting, to just kind of keep advancing the work. Sometimes, as you all know, when we put together some sort of statement or we take a vote on something, then we have to just put that into final writing, send it along to the city leadership. It doesn't take a lot of time. So it's not a huge time commitment, but it certainly attendance and just committing to being at the meetings is an important part of the role.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that, Katie and I and others and Tina do a lot of the other legwork around it, and it really is just about engaging your, insight and observations about what needs to come in front of the committee.
All right. So it looks like right now we have 2 volunteers.
I was gonna
Queen.
say,
Sorry, what?
I was gonna say, this is Karina again. I would like to, if Rose is available, I think Rose would be a good fit, and I would like to nominate her as well.
Rose, what say you?
This is Rose. Thank you so much. That is so kind. I'm not really in a place right now where I think I could take that on, just having moved to a new job. And I have some kind of like strict requirements in my new role in terms of conflict of interest, which I personally do not think this is a conflict of interest, but where I feel a little bit tied by it, I guess. And so I super appreciate that, and would politely decline.
Well, I thank you. I thank you for being honest.
That, Rose. You certainly contributed a lot to the committee already, so we're so appreciative of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so Queen and Scott, are you both interested in a co-chair role, or is that what you're looking for, or are you nominating yourselves for co-chair or for secretary or any of the above? So we know what we might be voting on.
Any of the above. Any way I can help, I'll be all right with that. Although I got to be very careful because a lot of times I be running and I be having like other commitments, but anywhere I can help out this committee, I would definitely be ready to do so. Thank you.
And yeah, I'd be interested in the co-chair role.
Right.
So Colleen, I think you may, I'm not sure that, I know there've been kind of some motions, but we may need a motion and a second to nominate the leadership candidates here, I guess, I think. And then take roll.
So I just wanted to clarify what they want, which position. So
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Can we clarify what the roles will actually be for both? Because I know Queen said sounds like whatever she's willing to do, but yeah, I would like to know what, so I know how to nominate her.
Well, since we only have two, maybe we say they're co-chairs, and other people who join or choose to join later on can just be part of the leadership team. That's how we framed it before.
Okay.
Queen, does that work for you, co-chair? As an, we still need the formal nomination, but I just want to make sure that you're good with that.
Were you speaking to me, Queen?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So, Queen, I just want to confirm.
Okay.
I just want to confirm, are you open to, willing to serve in the co-chair role?
I am.
Sounded like it. I just want to make sure that we're not signing you up for anything that you're not agreeing to. So, okay, so I think let's just go back, and we need formal nominations for our two volunteers. And Karina, I think you kind of made a formal nomination. I just want to make sure let's go ahead and just make it for the co-chair role specifically.
Yes, Karina, committee member Karina nominates Queen for co-chair.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
I will second both Queen and Scott for co-chair. This is Colleen O'Connor-Toberman, and I really appreciate both of them volunteering.
Point of process point question. I think do we have to stick with one, Katie? I don't know if we've had a formal nomination on Scott yet.
Yeah, I think we probably do, unless somebody wants to like amend the motion to do both at once. I think we can do that too.
This is Bruce. I'd like to amend the motion to include both Scott and Queen as co-chairs of the committee.
Right. Okay. Do I have a second?
Karina second.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Katie, would you mind taking a vote for us, please?
Yes. So we're taking the roll on both Scott and Queen as co-chairs of the committee. Karina Bowler.
Aye.
Bruce Brunner.
Yes.
Colleen Ebinger.
Yes.
Linsky Jaycox. Spolinski Jaycox. Queen Kimmons.
Yes.
Charlotte Kinsley.
Yes.
Colleen O'Connor Toberman.
Yes.
Scott Schaefer.
Yes.
Janine Seja.
Yes.
Cecil Smith.
Yes.
Rose Tang.
Yes.
Annie Wells.
Yes.
Right, there are 11 yeses, so that is approved.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both for stepping up. We really appreciate it. And we're excited for the year to come. So getting to kind of pass the baton. So thank you very much. Next on our agenda, I'm really excited for conversations that we'll get to have with our various department heads. So we'll have the directors of housing and regulatory services and the interim commissioner of health, all really timely topics right now as we start 2022 in a place that I think all of us hoped we wouldn't be, but we are. So we'll get a chance to hear more about all of their roles in the city and how that relates to our housing committee. So Katie, would you mind doing their introductions and get us off there, please?
Yes, so thank you, our housing director, relatively new housing director, Elfric Port is here. Well, actually all of our directors are relatively new to their roles. Saray Garnett Huhuli from Regulatory Services, and then our interim health commissioner, Heidi Ritchie, are all here to talk about the housing work in each of the departments that they're representing, health, CPED, and regulatory services. So this is meant to be an introduction and opportunity for you to get to know all of the directors and understand the roles that each department plays in housing policy and programs in the city, and for you to be able to ask questions. I think we have Elfric listed on the agenda first. I know, Elfric, you have a few slides, so I think I'll turn it over to you to start, and then we can just go right into Saray and then Heidi. And then I think maybe we'll just do questions all at the very end as sort of a panel type discussion. Elfric, I'll turn it to you, and I think you were going to share your own slides, correct? And I do have them, so I'll email them around to the committee, and we'll make sure they get included with the notes for anybody who's on the phone.
Great. Thank you very much, Katie, for the introduction. My name is Elfric Port. I've been with the city for a little over 18 years. Most recently, prior to my appointment to this position as the Director of Housing at CPED, I was the manager for our residential and real estate development team. I want to say, first of all, thank you for all of your work on this committee, and thanks for affording me the opportunity to join my peers and come out and talk about some of the work that we do here at CPED. Can you all see my screen? So I'm sharing it.
Again.
Okay, great.
Yes, we can see it.
So within our housing division, there are, first of all, the housing policy and development division is one of 4 divisions within our community planning and academic development department. Within our division, there are 2 work units: the residential finance team and the residential and real estate development team. And there is a lot of collaboration that goes on within our work, particularly within our CPED department. Katie's team and my team work closely together, and then there are internal and external stakeholders. The 2 others that are on the panel today are also key partners in the work that we do from a housing delivery system perspective.
So can use all the bags.
There are 7
Alfric, you are muted. I think maybe all the lines were muted and for a moment, so you need to unmute again.
Sorry about that.
So I don't know where I was muted. So should I just start with this slide, or did I lose you on the first one?
Just barely, like 5 seconds worth. So you can, I think, just start on this slide.
Okay, so there are seven strategies within our housing work: increasing housing supply, diversity, and affordability, producing more affordable rental housing and preserve subsidized affordable rental housing, preserve unsubsidized naturally occurring housing, improve and sustain access to home ownership, especially in the BIPOC community, support renters and prevent and end homelessness, and then maximize potential of publicly owned land to meet city housing goals. Within the residential finance team, we have that team focuses on affordable rental housing, and we define affordable rental housing at least as it relates to the work that we do here in CPED in 3 categories: households at or below 30% AMI, 50% AMI, and 60% AMI. And just for reference, the income levels are at 31, about 31,000, 50,000, and 60,000 in both in those 3 categories. On the Affordable Housing Trust Fund side, where we provide financing to support the development and rehab of 10 or more units of multifamily rental housing. This is the program that we typically use to support those efforts. And there's a funding agreement that typically runs for a 30-year process for those projects that we support. 20% of those units must be affordable at 50% AMI, and funds are available on a per unit basis. From a housing production perspective, the Met Council identifies a goal of producing 442 units annually. If you see this chart, the last 3 years, 2018 through 2020, we exceeded that. And in the 2021 numbers that will be coming out shortly, we anticipate that those numbers will be significantly higher than what the goals are set by Met Council. Then we also, in the residential finance space, we also do support for preservations projects. We partner with existing owners and landlords to commit to allowing 60% of their units serving households at 60% to be provided at a 10-year affordability period. In exchange for that, we afford them the opportunity for lower property taxes. On the residential and real estate development side, we provide affordable and sustainable ownership housing. And we do that in 3 categories: providing access to home ownership, creating affordable home ownership units, and then sustaining and preserving home ownership, those individuals that are already homeowners. Minneapolis has one of the worst home ownership disparity gaps in the country, and this chart shows that in order for us to close that gap, we need to provide 13,000 units of ownership opportunities to BIPOC renters. Looking at this chart, the Black and Indigenous communities are the ones with the highest disparity gaps in our cities, or in our city. And then we also do, in our name, we talk about policy. We also do policies, and what I show here are 4 recently approved policies: inclusionary zoning, preference policy, sustainability policy for 1 to 3 unit residential ownership buildings, and then the preference policy. We asked, when I was asked to come here today, we committed 10 minutes. So I'm going to end here and just say that there are, if there's a need for us to come back to give you a little bit more detailed approach on how we approach our work and the different programs that we use to address the housing needs in our city, be more than willing to come back and support that effort. And then lastly, on the document, I share with you that there in our work we have a lot of community engagement efforts that allows us to hear what the community wants in our program design as well as our policy making decisions. And then lastly, I have contact information for the managers in our work unit as well as mine. So feel free, and I'll stand for questions after the other two presenters complete their presentation.
Thanks so much.
I guess I'm next, right? So my name is Saray Garnett Hohuli. I am new to the position of Director of Regulatory Services. As you know, Regulatory Services has Minneapolis Animal Care Control, Traffic Control. We also have Inspection Services, and then Operations falls under my purview. Today, obviously, you want to know about housing, and Kelly Rose Jones is our director. So Inspection Services, that really falls under their umbrella and their responsibility. And one of the things that we do is we inspect to make sure our housing stock and our buildings are meeting the standards of the city. Are they safe? Are they healthy places to live? For residents that are renters, regardless of how you occupy a space. And so what we really do is we follow ordinances. But beyond that, we have found that one of the things that we really want to focus on is we want to enforce with a kind heart and a firm hand. We want to educate, and we don't want to displace. So some of the things that we have done to adapt to the needs of, as you saw Alfred's slide, we have noticed that the majority of our housing population is now renters versus home ownership. What does that really mean? So Kelly's group, and operations, we have over 25,000 rental license that we review every year. The group also does tiering. We want to understand, what does our housing stock look like? Who are the owners? We really try and be proactive on who are folks that are taking care of a property and need to help. We educate our property owners, and we also educate our renters. A lot of the things that we've done in the last couple of years around Renters First policies is, again, making sure that everybody understands what their rights are as a property owner as well as a renter. Do you have access? Are you treated well? Do you understand what your rights are? We've also created in the last 2 years, we have an alternative enforcement team where when people come into crisis, if there's an emergency repair board, we, rather than displacing or condemning a house, we want to keep people in place and work with folks to either repair their boiler or furnace, so we can keep renters or residents in their home, but also help out that property owner. The other newer thing that we did, and Kelly can fill in all the gaps if I've missed anything, we've also created it's a couple of years into the program, we have renter and homeowner navigators or liaisons. Again, when we come in to enforce, we are approaching people from a human-centric approach to understand the why we are enforcing and to understand how can we assist and help people age or live in place. And we also and I will say that we work with lots of other departments. We work very closely with CPED. We work very closely with health. We are doing some lead-based prevention with our inspectors. They are being trained so when they go into homes, they can look for these And we can be, again, what we're trying to do is be proactive in our approach. We don't want to wait for a child to be sick. We want to prevent that, right? We also understand that housing stability is extremely important. And when we look and create policies, we always keep that in mind. One of the other things is we're also, unfortunately, homelessness is impacting us, and reg services is in that as well. So when we talk about housing, it's not just the brick and mortar, it's those things around that. We also create policy, as well as Alfred indicated. We were heavily part of the short-term rental conversation on regulating that. That was not something that was regulated, and that impact our housing ability. How does that impact our housing stock and the affordability on that? So those are the things that regulatory services works on. And I just realized I forgot to introduce myself in the background. I just got right into the work. So my name is Saray Garnett, and I've been with the city for 6 years. I've been in regulatory services for the last 2 years, and 2 years before that, I was in the assessor's office. So I understand housing in different ways, kind of a 360. And previously to coming into the city, I was a real estate appraiser. So I understand housing and the economics of that, and how those things play in together, and how our market appreciates, and how important good housing stock, not good, healthy housing, and housing that is safe for everybody is an asset to the community as well as to the city. So previously, like I said, I've been in the assessment or valuation space for a long time nationwide. I was responsible for 40% of the United States in terms of risk and analysis on that. And then the funny thing is I come full circle. My degree is actually in housing with a focus on community development policy. So I'm in my dream job. So those are some of the things that I do, and I also operate from an anti-racist perspective. We are looking at, people holistically understanding how housing demands and issues change and evolve over time. So those are some of the things that I deal with, and not deal with, I'm related to and I'm passionate about. And Kelly, I'm sure I missed a lot, but that's just a basic overview. You all know Kelly really well. So that's my spiel. Heidi?
Thanks, Saray. Hi, Alfred. It's been a while since I've seen you and other folks on the call. It's nice to see you all. So my name is Heidi Ritchie, and I am the interim health commissioner in Minneapolis. I'm just finishing my second week. So I ask for your grace if I don't know all the intricacies of the department's housing work, but I think I have a pretty good handle on it. I have been with the city for 16 years. I started in Councilmember Gary Schiff's office, who represented the 9th Ward, and he was also the chair of the Zoning Planning Committee and on the City Planning Commission. So there's some policy background that I worked on with that. Also worked in Councilmember Fry's office when he represented the 3rd Ward, worked on the short-term rental ordinance. And then also just recently spent the last 4 years as the policy and budget director for Mayor Fry. My background is in both policy and health and public health. I'm a nurse. I'm public health nursing certified. And then I have a background in political science and international relations as well, education. So like Saray said, I've come a little full circle as well, and I'm kind of in my dream job right now. So into the work in the health department, we have a couple different buckets. We've got the sort of administration piece of it, which is headed up by Noya Woodrich, Deputy Commissioner. That's kind of morphed a little bit as we've seen some issues crop up that the health department really has had to put more resources into. Saray mentioned one of those, which is the unsheltered homeless response. That's something that we've recently just had to put more resources into. And I think as a city, we're trying to figure out how we centralize that and how we sort of have that work collaborated. We've also got emergency preparedness in that respect. I mean, that's obviously with the pandemic, something that's really important. We're focusing on making sure that we can keep people safe. And I think part of that is keeping people in their homes. Maternal child health and development is also in that. We've got, let's see, the opioid response. I think that's another piece where, it's connected with stable housing, safe housing, sustainable housing. And I think that's the piece too, is that, you know, Alfred was talking about providing the housing and providing the homeownership opportunities. And Saray talked about providing safe and healthy housing. And I think for the health department, it's also providing safe, you know, we've got the housing, but the health department, our job, our role is to make sure that housing stock is safe, healthy, and sustainable. We've got the environmental health division, which is Cindy Weckworth. That's our food, lodging, and pools. And then we do some community outreach with our businesses around that. Our environmental programs is Patrick Hanlon, and I think that's one of the biggest connections with housing. That's our lead and healthy homes and our environmental services. So working on making sure that we can eradicate childhood lead poisoning, and so we don't have to wait until, like Saray said, a child is poisoned before we are going in there and mitigating the issues. Asthma is another one, radon is another one. So making sure that the housing stock that we have is healthy. Then we've got our policy and community programs, that's healthy living. So things like chronic disease management. This is where we've got some of our visiting nurses. Again, that helps keep people in their homes if the nurses can come out and visit with them and help them with their medications and whatever they need. Homegrown Minneapolis is underneath that. That's, you know, obviously we've got lots that we're trying to, you know, at least lease for community gardens, and we intersect with CPED a lot on that because we want to make sure that we're leasing the right types of spaces we're using that space for the right and highest use. And then our school-based clinics is also there. And then our last bucket is Office of Violence Prevention. There's quite a bit that goes into that with housing too. And I think that's just taking people who are at high risk for losing housing or not having housing in the first place and making sure that we can help and provide those resources. So I hope that gives you a little bit of a broad look. I mean, there are specific programs that we work on, like the 4D program, which, you know, it provides a tax incentive for folks who keep some of their units affordable. We come in and we say, and on top of that, we want to make your building or your home energy efficient, and we're going to help you do that as well. Energy efficient and lead abated and things like that. So working sort of with the programs that we've got, with the programs that CPED has, to kind of layer on those resources. We also do the energy benchmarking. It's only been a couple years since we've been doing the residential energy benchmarking, but I saw a slide yesterday that we're at 81% reporting for our residential buildings, and that's really good. Our multifamily, which we have been doing for more, I think we've been doing that for 6-ish years, that's at about 88%. So we're really pleased with how that program is working out. So with that, I think my 10 minutes are up.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. We really appreciate your time here and taking the time to talk with our committee. Do any committee members have any questions? Anyone? Oh, Bruce, I see your hand is up. Go ahead.
Hi, Saray. My name is Bruce Brunner. I own and am a housing provider, and I'm also a general contractor. I build and renovate many properties. One of the things that I found in the program, I was brought in by someone that owned a fourplex because I'm a general contractor and have a lot of experience with it. He had an inspection. He was declared a tier 3. And when I was brought in, I went through, and lots of the things that the inspector was having us do were really ticky-tacky. And when we talked about some that really added a lot of expense, his attitude was, well, I really don't care, right? And I tried to explain the financial piece also, and I'm about healthy, safe living. But, you know, I just want to say it's not always easy to do the things that some of the inspectors ask us to do, right? And one of the things I come back to is I knew quite a few of the city councilmen and had a great relationship with Cam Gordon. And one of my questions to him was, well, if I come in and I fix a building and everything passes on a tier 3, why don't you let that person or myself come back to a tier 1? And he said, well, it goes back 10 or 20 years when the person that was in charge of regulatory kind of saw it as his job to raise enough funds to offset the cost of his department. And Cam at that time said, listen, if someone fixes everything, that's all we're trying to do. But there's a time frame of 2 years that you inflate from like $140 a year to well over $900 a year to collect fees. So I just want to pose that out, that rather than being punitive, once a landlord or someone that owns it and general contractors fix the problem completely, we would like to see that piece taken off so we're not continually financially penalized. So I'd just like to put that last piece out as you take this job and look forward. Thank you.
Did you want a response, Bruce? I think Saray actually had to take another phone call, and I'd be happy to at least, take a crack at a response. I don't know, Colleen, if that's what you want, or this is just we hear you and, Bruce, be happy to talk to you more about it. What I can tell you, maybe I'll just take a second, is we have actually recently got a new program in place where it's an accelerated. It basically takes into account, Bruce, what you're talking about. We want people to move from a tier 3 to a tier 2 to a tier 1. So we have a new program where we're offering an opportunity for folks in tier 2 and tier 3 to do what we're calling an accelerated inspection. You get the inspection done, and then we move you down the tier at that same year, so that you're not waiting for 2 years. And we get that people inherit tiers and put a lot of resources into them. In fact, that's something that a lot of our inspectors have shared with us. They're like, hey, we think this should not be a tier 3 because they've invested so much money. And so we do recognize that, and our fees are not at all meant to, I think that whatever Cam was alluding to is a director that hasn't been here for 10, 12 years.
Yes.
So, and that is really no longer the philosophy of the department, and it hasn't been for a while. So we're, like Saray said, we're about partnering, about making sure that we support owners in doing, and being compliant, and recognizing that there's a reasonableness standard that we always want to support as well, because housing stability and housing quality is our goal.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you, Kelly. That I think that's the right place to go, because we just want to fix the problem so it becomes healthy housing.
Yeah.
When did the new accelerated program go into?
It's actually just going into effect now. We're going to be starting the project this year. It's been in the planning stages for a while. We weren't able to sort of pull it together till just the last 3 or 4 weeks, but now we're ready to launch it, and we'll be actually sending out email or flyers or informational to those properties that are eligible for this new program. Again, we want people to move from tier 2 and tier 3 to tier 1. And we want to give you the opportunity to do it in a partnership. So
I'll just say all of my properties are tier 1. Thanks, Kelly.
Okay, good. I know Cecil's are too. He always starts his comments on, my properties are tier 1.
Oh, the 1D now.
They're 1D. That's right.
Yeah. Cecil, you have your hand up. Do you have a?
Yeah, I do. So my question relates, it's for Heidi. Hi, Heidi. SROs, the city broadened its policy, essentially reopened the development of SROs. That has traditionally been regulated, overseen by the health department. Are we continuing that, or are we modifying the regulation and inspection of SROs as we hopefully get more single room occupancy housing available in the city.
Heidi, you want me to take this one too?
Yeah, yep.
Okay, thanks, Cecil. So yeah, so we did recently pass the single room occupancy ordinance. And how it's going to work is that there'll be a special SRO license that will be provided through the inspection services. We'll be working closely with our, if there's something like if the SRO is providing food or doing something else, which is more similar to congregate living, then the board and lodging folks that are in Heidi's shop will manage it. But if it's just a new single room occupancy, either a conversion or a new property, that's literally just that. You're there, you're renting a room in a affordable space in cohabitating with people who are also in that same situation, then the license is going through, will be inspected and regulated through us, through inspection services.
So the follow-up to that is curious. So if there's no communal food preparation, then it's not inspected by the health department.
Correct. It'll be part of a subset of rental licenses called single room occupancy.
And does that assume that food preparation is occurring on an individual basis in people's rooms?
Or shared kitchen or some other spot but we're not bringing in food. There's no food preparation. It's not part of sort of what you're paying for to live there. There's no services. Okay. So it's literally an alternative housing option.
Right. So with the shared kitchen, so long as people are doing their own individual food preparation, that's not a concern for the health department.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Yes. And we checked that all out with the state before this happened. There was a lot of research and preparation that went into the SRO ordinance. So.
Right. Well, that's even better news because that's a lot easier to manage if you're not having to worry about food safety regulations.
Right. We're just assuming people are, if they want to sit at the kitchen table and eat together, what do we care, you know?
Yep. Yeah, good.
Hey, I got some pizza. You want to join me? Or take their pizza to their room, or, you know, bake some toast on a toaster. So.
Yeah, I think that needs to be talked about because most people assume with SROs that have been, at least in the housing space, assume health department regulation of shared bathrooms and kitchens, and it's a much tougher, and rightly so, because of food safety and sanitation issues.
Yeah.
That's a bigger lift to get over, and I think some people just assume that and don't even think about that space for development.
Yes. But yes, and so we do have some frequently asked questions that are being developed and put in place. We're still working on some finalizing the application process, and we do require that the SROs have a management plan that talks about that. What's your strategy for ensuring, you know, that people manage, you know, how are you planning on managing that aspect of the living situation? So without us like being in there, you know, checking those types of activities. So.
Great. Any other questions? Going once, going twice, last chance. Got all these directors right here. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions. Thank you all so much for your time. Oh, Cecil, right down to the.
So, well, you gave us time to think. So
I know.
I'm just from Alfric or even Katie. Can you explain the role of the interaction between your two shops? So, I just want to figure out how that works, how you coordinate with, if there's a housing director and then there's a policy shop, or there's overlap?
Alfred, do you want?
You want to start?
Sure, sure, I can take it. So thanks, Cecil. Yeah, so we did, I think, and I had to step away for a minute while Alfred was talking, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating things that he said. So last year, there was a little bit of reorganization within CPED, and a team that I'm now managing was created. It's called the Policy Research and Outreach Team. We are housed within the operations division of CPED. So CPED has housing, economic development, construction, or I always forget Steve Poor's official team name, development services. Yes, there we go. And then operations. And so, so my previous role was housing policy coordinator. But there was recognition of a few things. One, that there's a lot of policy work done in CPED, not just in the housing division, but in economic development and other areas, and need for support on that policy work. And then also that we wanted to bring the data analysts who were kind of housed within each individual division together as well, because a lot of the research and data functions across the divisions are really shared. A lot of the information that we need to analyze in economic development and housing is very similar. And so, so my team is intended to provide support for the entire department around policy, data analysis, and research and outreach. And so, so because there's been so much housing policy work and will continue to be, I'm working, and then as Joey comes on board and working on policy as well, we'll be working very closely with Elfric and the housing team on housing policy. We'll be often sort of leading a lot of the work with stakeholders and the actual policy development work itself, but we'll be doing it in concert with Elfric and whoever he might designate from his team, similar with economic development, as there may be changes around policies related to economic development work. So that's the vision, and really trying to bring in the research team all under one umbrella to help inform that policy work as well, is the goal of having this team in place. So while you know, my team is in operations, we're working really closely with all the divisions in CPED. It's still pretty new and we're still sorting through it in some ways, but that's our goal.
But from an efficiency perspective, it's working well. Earlier on, there was only one data analyst in the housing division. Now we have access to multiple.
Right. And so that's part of the goal too, is making sure as we're doing things like, data, making maps, making dashboards, those kinds of research functions, that it all doesn't just fall on one person to do all the housing stuff. We're kind of spreading it around and better able to prioritize that work.
This is Karina. I have a question.
Go ahead, Karina. Go ahead, Karina.
Yeah, I got muted for the longest. So I have a question for all three. My first question will go to Director of CPED. When you guys are approving redevelopments with landlords and the developers, we would like, as renters, we would like to see some right to return agreements for relocation agreements for all the renters. So those agreements would be, you know, whatever the relocation meeting is, whatever the plan is, to make sure that the renters are aware of the relocation process and that they are, you know, in the process of, you know, knowing what's going on, you know, in the early stages. And then that relocation right to return agreement would definitely, you know, stop some confusion that happens a lot because there's no communication, you know, from the property owner or the management company or whoever is, you know, being a spokesperson. So I think those right to return agreements to renters doing a redevelopment would be a perfect face to say, hey, we're listening to you guys, and your voices is heard. So without that process, and renters do become displaced under these remodels that's been happening in our city, that'll help stop some of that, to make sure that renters go back to their homes. My second one will go to the health department, to Heidi. Healthy housing is important, and I'm a renter, and I know a lot that's going on in the city. And a lot of these houses in Minneapolis are not healthy. The asthma rates are up and high. I'm not sure of the lead. I know our building went through a radon testing, and to this day, we never heard the results. So we want to make sure that the word healthy housing is really reaching the right ears, and it's really an important topic, because we have a lot of kids and adults and elders who have CPOD from non-healthy substandard living housing. So we want to make sure that the health department and those regulatory, are staying on top of those, serious concerns, so that renters are not living in substandard housing. So that will fall into the 3-tier with the regulatory services. And I know, Kelly, me and you spoke a lot about the 3-tier program. And I think that the 3-tier program, with landlords saying that, that they bought into a 3-tier. I know our property didn't start in 2016, and the owners of our building bought it in 2011. And when they hired the management company who they have now, it became a 3-tier in 2016. So with the 3-tier program, if you have a multifamily building and they're a 3-tier program, 3-tier property, we want to make sure that the agreement stands. If you got tenants calling, and complaining about all kind of issues, infestations, and all of this, but the landlord is telling you guys, the city, hey, everything is fine over there. It's all butterflies and rainbows. But we have a building full of complaints, and we're calling every social services in Minneapolis. We want to make sure that that 3-tier program also goes into a retaliatory intimidation enforcement agreement with the tier program, because it will block that confusion. So that would also be when they do a license inspection, the regulatory services and the health department can come out there and reevaluate that 3-tier program. And yes, they'll gradually go to a tier 1, but you got to keep it up. You can't just fix it day 1 year and then expect for the city not to say you back to a tier 2, tier 3. You got to keep it going. Mm-hmm. And that's how you create healthy housing. To the regulatory services, when you guys are doing license inspections and you're in HUD buildings, also make sure you're looking out for the PVCA, which is the Performance-Based Administration for HUD properties, because according to HUD, those are supposed to be listed for the tenants and you guys to see that they are performing and they are, living upon the rights and the laws that HUD said that they would do. So those are some of the things that I want to discuss, and it's important to me because I am a renter and I know what's going on with renters in Minneapolis. So that's my time, and you can answer if you like.
I'm going to say that this is Elfric. I would love to follow up with you on the relocation and return rights of return. Can I give you my number and so we can connect? And then what I can commit to is after she and I have communicated, I can share that some of the findings and results with Katie, and she can disseminate that information to this group.
Yeah, if Katie, if you want to, you can CC me in an email, or I can take your number now. That's fine, either way.
It's
I can send an email to. Oh, go ahead, Alfred. Otherwise, I can do it by email too, if that's easier.
She can do it by email if you like. That's fine.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. So, but if you'd like to respond to it, I love that as well.
Well, I want to better understand, because just as from a relocation perspective, or from CPED's perspective, where we provide funding to projects that require that, and those projects necessitate some relocation, there are HUD required steps that need to be employed. So I need to just better understand, and that's why I wanted to take it offline, so I don't take up too much time in this space, but wanted to better understand if we're talking globally or just the CPED funded projects. And that's the piece that I wanted to just see clarification on.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's a global thing, but I will keep it Minnesota based. But it is something that's happening that I'm hearing and that I'm involved with. So, but I would love to just keep it Minnesota based, but yeah, we'll definitely talk offline.
Okay.
Yep.
And I know we're running out of time here. We've got our next agenda item, but we do have quick 2 questions. So I thought Scott and Queen, if you want to both ask your questions, fire shot style, and then we'll give people a chance to answer those 2 together.
Yeah, sure. Hi, this is Scott. So we've adopted a couple housing policies over the last few years, like SRO and inclusionary zoning. And if we want these policies to have, if we want the best housing outcomes, we need to be kind of monitoring and evaluating these policies. And I just wanted to know who needs to kind of order a report on a given policy, whether that's something you could do, Alfric, or whether that needs to come from City Council, or what.
What's the last part? Who orders? I missed the last part of the question.
Yeah, who would need to kind of order a report on, say we need to evaluate, our inclusionary zoning policy to see if it's the most effective, if we need to, change any aspects of the policy, whether that needs to come from City Council or from you as the housing policy director.
We from time to time do evaluations on all of our programs and policies. So if you as a resident feel the need for information, feel free and reach out, and we'll work on getting you that information. If the evaluation is not yet complete or it's not underway, we can put that system in place. And Katie wanted to add a few points as well.
Yeah, I was just going to add on a couple of the high-profile policies you mentioned, Scott. There are evaluation plans in place. So for inclusionary zoning, for example, there's a dashboard that we can share with the committee and a report that went to council last year that will be updated annually. And then for Minneapolis 2040, the Federal Reserve is working with the city to do analysis of how many units are created as a result of that policy. So they just released a dashboard as well that they worked with CPED to create. So I just wanted to, since those are 2 pretty high profile recent things, there are those plans in place for those specific policies, and I can make sure that the committee gets the links to those.
Great, thanks so much.
Still there?
Yep, I'm still here.
Yeah.
Really
Okay.
quick, anybody from one of those departments can answer this. I'm just interested in knowing who still has the listings of vacant lots in the city and how many vacant lots we have. We're talking about, doing developments and creating policy on these houses that's being put out here. And I would be interested in knowing how many vacant lots, and does the city still host that on their website, and how can we navigate that?
So I'll speak to that. So the city, the CPED or the city owns vacant parcels in the city. There are parcels you're speaking specifically about development properties, and all of those development properties are housed within CPED. So that information is public, and I can share that information with you. As far as disposing of them for development purposes, they all go through a request for proposals process. we currently have a NOFA, Notice of Funding Availability, through our Minneapolis Homes program that's out right now. And that's how developers like yourselves could take a look and submit a proposal. If you're talking about all vacant lots within the city structure, I mean, within the city boundaries, then we can work with other city departments to try to get you that list, whether it's working with Katie's team or the assessor's office, or the like. But if you're looking for vacant parcels for development purposes, we can share with you the vacant lots, but we wouldn't have, if it's not city-owned parcels, we wouldn't be able to help you meander through that process of trying to engage the property owner and negotiate an acquisition.
Okay, thank you, Alfred.
You're welcome.
Sorry, I'm just having trouble getting off mute. Par for the course. Great. Well, thank you. Let's all. Thanks so much to all of you. Really appreciate your time. Thank you for your leadership of the city, and taking the time to be here with us today. We do very much appreciate it. You're welcome to stay if you want, but you're also certainly welcome to go because I know you've got plenty else on your plate today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to point out that I put some information on a HUD grant that we just got, which addresses one of Queen's questions about the safety in housing. So before I go, I just wanted to make sure people had that notification. Thank you.
Thanks, Heidi. All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Great. So the last item on our agenda today is to talk through 2022 planning. And you'll recall we've done this, each year in the past, talked through try to prioritize the topics that are the highest priorities for this committee, and then started mapping those out for the year as agenda items. So I'm just going to open it up right now for some conversation about the topics that you think this committee should ensure that we focus on throughout the year.
I think tracking the rent control policy, is that the kind of information you're looking for? Like those kinds of things?
Yeah, it could be. Can you just say a little more when you say tracking?
Well, just like as it moves through, like what it evolves into, I think it'd be important to keep our eye on that.
Yep. So continually being informed of the progress and status. Yeah.
I think additionally, how do we weigh in on letting people or city council or I guess the mayor more now, because that's where all decisions will stem from. How do we give additional information so everyone's represented?
And Bruce, are you saying additional information? Are you saying specifically about the rent control discussion, or?
Yeah, specifically about rent control.
Okay.
I know that we had brought this up in the past about tenants having some ownership in these properties, those individuals that can hold the ownership. I would like to keep track of that conversation and see how it develops with new council that is coming on board. I forgot the name of it. I know it generated somewhere in Washington, D.C. and finally landed in Minnesota. So I think that would be of importance to see, how is that fairly mapped out. Thank you.
I think you're talking about TOPA, right? And that is coming. So yeah, we can put that on the list as well.
Yeah, I think rent control the Right to Counsel update, the Tenant Empowerment Act, and the Good Cause Eviction Bill will be some great topics to discuss.
I would like to add one more thing if I can. This is Queen. I have been tracking information coming from MFHA, and it is in regard to using first-time homeowners' money towards contract for deeds. And they are saying that in the same essence of using, you know, that policy, first-time homeowners, you could also have used that for housing for contract for deed. And I'm wondering how we could get information about that. If someone from this committee could see if there's any policy, or is there any truth to that? So I would really like to kind of get to a deeper dive into that.
Great, we've got that noted. And Queen, just to go do that, are you most interested in like the specifics of MHFAs and the contract for deed aspect of it, or is it, or also more like sort of broadly home ownership?
Well, I think it's important about home ownership, since we always talking about, you know, wealth gap and housing gap with homeowners and Black folks that are having their lack of home ownership. So I would like to just do a deeper dive to see if this is something that MHFA, is this real? I mean, because this would be great in some aspects of someone's life who would like to do a contract for deed home ownership. And if they can use first-time home buyers' money, you know, when that came to me, that was kind of like news. And so I just needed to know if that's something that, you know, anybody else heard of, or is it just something that, you know, as this committee is there, you know, we needed to be more informed about it, or what have you.
So I know in the past, we've certainly had, you know, talked a lot about interest in homelessness and homelessness prevention, and then also broadly in home ownership. Those are two topics that have been kind of ongoing priorities. Do we want to keep those? I mean, I'm hearing Queen talk both in TOPA and in the contract for deed home ownership coming up. I would imagine we'd still want updates related to homelessness on our agenda for the year. Does anyone want to talk about that or prioritize that?
Yes. I would like to know what's going on with these encampments, since it's been below zero.
And then I think generally we want to be staying in the loop and with updates on any policies in addition to rent control, but, you know, TOPA, all these other policies and opportunities to weigh in. So we can probably create a, you know, larger bucket for all of those as kind of ongoing updates and opportunities for feedback.
Colleen, do you guys hear me? Because my calls keep muting.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Go ahead. And then I'm seeing.
Did you get the things that I said?
No, just heard you just now.
I'm saying my call keep muted. So I would like for right to return counsel to be talked about, rent control. I would like to keep Minnesota on top of the Tenant Empowerment Act, and also the Good Cause Eviction Bill for renters to get their leases renewed by their landlords. And what else? and the homeless, update and the healthy housing for sure.
And great, thanks. I've taken note of all that. Janine. Next.
Sure, this is a little bit more of a theme. It probably encompasses multiple topics, but it would be great sometime in 2022 to maybe have a pandemic outcomes discussion, which, would probably go into the rental assistance programs and how well some of that, did and didn't go, and outcomes from that, as well as, it touches on homelessness and other areas. But yeah, just pandemic theme and impact across the topics that this committee's interested in.
Yeah. And there's a lot of things that were attempted and tried during this period that were very different, and what worked and what didn't.
Mm-hmm. What are the lessons going forward? What are things that we could build out more?
Yeah, great. Cecil, see your hand up.
Thanks.
And then,
so one of the policies statewide that's been quite effective in Minneapolis, who has been and Hennepin County in partnership has been heavily involved, is ending veterans homelessness, and it's been quite successful. And if anything, it's potentially a model for helping to get our unsheltered neighbors into housing. And so I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity to explore that, to look at that model and why it's worked and how it's working, to understand the cost, because it is more expensive in terms of the initial investment, but there's some pretty big returns in terms of helping people become housed, and often there's benefits in terms of their healthcare outcomes and broad spectrum of positive things that happen for those individuals. So I've watched that closely. I've even participated in it as a housing provider. And I think there's some lessons to be learned that might inform taking something that's been particular for veterans and say, ask the question, does this at a greater scale, could this be effective with the broader unsheltered population?
Great. Noted as well. Thanks, Cecil. Katie, your hand is up.
Thanks. I was just going to offer a couple of things that I know will be happening that might be opportunities for this committee to weigh in. You've obviously received updates last year on the American Rescue Plan funds around housing and homelessness, but we are still very actively working on implementation for some of those funds. And there will be additional rounds of funding announced in the spring. And so, and then there are going to be other implementation measures happening this year around SRO and some of the new policies that have been adopted in recent years. So I just think, I know we often focus on kind of the newer policies or things that haven't been adopted yet, but I do think there will likely be some opportunity for this committee to weigh in as staff are working on implementation of things that the council has already approved. And certainly, obviously, we work with the co-chairs to help identify those opportunities for the committee to weigh in throughout the year. But I just wanted to sort of have a note of that. I think especially around ARP funds, there will be opportunity for that. The city's also receiving home ARP funds, or has received, as well as the county, and we're pretty early in conversations about how to implement those, and so I think that will be a place where this committee could provide some input.
Great, thanks, Katie, for that context. A lot coming our way. That could be rolling well too with a pandemic theme. Some of that, the both what happened and then what is the outcome of the pandemic and what is going to be continuing to go forward in terms of resources and funds. Andrea, in a way, you have your hand up, and then Lisa, I see you do as well. Hi. Go ahead, Andrea.
Yes, I just wanted to offer, as in the past we've done, I'm happy to either present myself or facilitate someone from the budget office presenting about the 2023 budget as we start to think about 2023 already, as well as there will be a second round of ARP funding recommendations that the mayor will be putting out later this spring. So I'm happy to give information to the committee and get feedback on those as well, if that's of interest.
Excellent. There will be. Thanks, Andrea.
This is Lisa. I just wanted to put on people's radar in line with what Katie said, that with the council adopting the lead elimination plan, we will be looking at bringing forward next year some minor ordinance modifications that this committee might want to look at.
Modifications to that plan, you're saying?
Not to the plan, but to city ordinances as that were outlined in the plan.
Implementation of the plan. There's some city ordinances that may have to be changed.
Yeah.
Okay. As always, no shortage of topics related to housing. All right, well, that is giving us a fairly full agenda, but if there's anyone else who wants to still add anything else, we can. And then Scott and Queen will have the joy of getting to start talking about it and figuring out what we are going to put on each month's agenda. You look like you're about to say
one
something.
other thing I just wanted to mention quickly, it's not a housing agenda topic, but just obviously the city's government structure is changing. We also have a new council. And so I just wanted to flag both of those things. We weren't quite ready to be able to talk about them this month, the new government structure, because there's still a lot going on in terms of protocols, how it all kind of works in practice. But that is something we do intend to bring to the committee in the next month or two, just to give a little bit of an update about what do these changes really mean for how policy is adopted in the city. And then I just also wanted to note, obviously, we had Robin Garwood and Councilmember Gordon very closely connected to this committee over the last few years. And so we will be trying to identify with the new council starting. Sorry, something just fell in my space here. But anyway, we'll be working to identify somebody from the council to be working closely with the committee as well in the months ahead. So more to come on that.
Thanks, Katie, and thanks to all of the city staff for all your work. As I said earlier, you really make this committee work smoothly, and you do most of the work of it. So thanks for doing all the coordination with getting our speakers to our meeting so that we can learn more about what's going on and keep updated. Really appreciate it. All right. Well, we may have achieved our full agenda by now. It looks like we may have wrapped up, but if there's anything else that people want to add, just hold open for another moment here. Cecil, when I give another moment, it looks like Cecil, you're always adding one more, right? The danger of...
As someone who has to chair meetings, I always like it when people just like let it go, but then when you open the door, you open yourself up. Another thing, and this is kind of big picture, is just looking at a view of our housing stock. So, I'm very focused on rental housing. There's about 110,000 units of rental housing in the city, but how has our housing stock changed over time? What are the trends? What inventory do we have available, especially for at entry level, but especially for home ownership? And what's the trends been like in that? We've got, we're trending more rental housing, but there are also people who want to buy homes. But the average cost of single family home in Minneapolis has really accelerated over the last 10 years. So just to look at where are the gaps in inventory, how are we filling those gaps? How has it changed? And to kind of get a bigger view, a broader view of our housing stock and understanding that, I think would be really interesting to help this committee be more informed and have more context.
Great. Got another one?
Yeah, I don't have any other agenda items, but I did want to just take a moment to express my appreciation of you and Joey's work over the last few years, and just that I think your diligence and yeah, sort of vision have really taken this committee off the ground, and yeah, looking forward to working with Queen to continue your legacy. So thanks.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Diddles.
And that this is the other Colleen. Thank you, Colleen, and Joey in her absence for all of your hard work here.
Like I said, it makes it easy when you've got Katie and Kelly and others the whole time to support us. So they really, again, do all the work. Tina, Andrea. And I am, yeah, very excited to see Queen and Scott, see you take it to the next stage. Appreciation for all of you. All right, well, I think with that, I think we've wrapped things up. So I've been taking notes. Katie, it looks like you probably may have been too. So I'll share those with Katie so that we can get the minutes out. And then I think that we'll hand that off to Queen and Scott to start making a plan for this year, not next year, but this year, 2022, which we're already in. All right. With that, I officially adjourn our January meeting of the Housing Advisory Committee. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, bye.
Thanks, bye.